My sister married my fiancé in the same chapel where I had planned to marry him. That was the part nobody in my family liked to say out loud. They said things like, the heart wants what it wants, and you can't force love, and maybe this was meant to happen before vows were exchanged. As if betrayal became mercy just because it arrived early. As if my wedding dress hadn't already been fitted. As if my name hadn't already been printed beside Dorian's on 200 cream-colored invitations. As if Bianca hadn't stood beside me for 7 months, helping me choose flowers, tasting lemon cakes, dabbing fake tears from the corners of her eyes while saying, "You're finally getting your fairy tale, Amara." My fairy tale? Then she took the groom. And on the day she married him, she looked right at me from the chapel steps, lace veil glowing around her face, and smiled like she had won a prize. "Don't look so wounded," she said softly while guests pretended not to listen. "You should be happy for us. He chose the woman who made him feel alive." Then she laughed. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just enough for me to hear. That was worse. Because it meant the cruelty was private, deliberate. Meant only for me. I remember standing there in a navy dress I had bought for the funeral of my own engagement, holding a white envelope with their wedding gift inside because my mother had begged me not to make things awkward. The gift was a handmade recipe book. Family recipes. My recipes. The ones Bianca used to roll her eyes at when we were younger because baking was such a small-town dream. But Dorian loved my brown butter pear tart, so suddenly Bianca wanted to learn everything. How to fold dough, how to make custard glossy, how to braid challah, how to smell when sugar was about to burn. I gave her the book because I wanted to prove I was bigger than what she had done. I was not bigger. I was just exhausted. Dorian stood a few feet behind her in his charcoal suit, his smile tight, his eyes avoiding mine. He had always been handsome in a polished, expensive way. Perfect hair, perfect watch, perfect voice. He could make a lie sound like a promise if he lowered his tone enough. 3 months earlier, he had held my hands in my tiny apartment kitchen and told me he needed, quote, space to understand himself. 2 weeks after that, Bianca stopped answering my calls. 1 week later, my mother sat across from me at breakfast stirring untouched tea and said, "Amara, I need you to breathe before I tell you something." I did breathe. Then I stopped. By the time Bianca and Dorian announced their engagement, my family had already decided how the story would be told. They didn't cheat. They fell in love unexpectedly. I wasn't abandoned. I was having trouble accepting reality. Bianca wasn't cruel. She was following her heart. And Dorian wasn't a coward. He was confused, but ultimately honest. Honest? That word still tasted bitter 2 years later. After their wedding, I left Bellwether, the town where everyone knew my family, my failed engagement, and the exact pew where I sat while my sister took my future. I moved 40 minutes east to a riverside neighborhood where nobody cared who I had almost married. I rented the back half of an old brick storefront from a retired watchmaker and opened a small bakery called the Copper Oven. At first, people came because they were curious. Then they came because my bread was good. Then they came because grief, if you need it long enough, becomes muscle. I worked before sunrise. I slept hard. I stopped checking Bianca's social media. I stopped asking my parents whether they had spoken to her. I stopped correcting people when they said, "You're so strong." I wasn't strong. I was busy. There is a difference. For 2 years, Bianca sent me nothing except one birthday text. "Hope you're well. No hard feelings." No hard feelings. I stared at those 3 words for so long the screen went dark in my hand. Then, one rainy Thursday in October, my phone rang at 1:36 in the morning. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then it rang again. And again. On the 4th call, I answered. For a second, all I heard was breathing. Then a voice cracked through the line. "Amara?" I sat up in bed. Bianca. She sounded smaller than I remembered. Not softer. Smaller. like someone had folded her from the inside. "What happened?" I asked. She sobbed once, sharp and ugly. "He's gone." My room was dark except for the blue glow of my phone. Rain tapped at the window above my bed. Somewhere downstairs, the bakery refrigerators hummed. "Who's gone?" I asked, though I already knew. "Dorian," she whispered. "He left. He took everything." I closed my eyes. Not because I was surprised. Because some part of me had known this call would come one day. Maybe not the details, but the shape of it. "What do you mean everything?" "Our savings, my jewelry, the money Dad gave us for the house, the business account, even the emergency fund." Her breath hitched. "Amara, he emptied all of it." I said nothing. Bianca cried harder. "I found things," she said. "Files, papers, copies of IDs, bank letters, credit reports." Her voice dropped into something close to terror. "He had one on you, too." That made me open my eyes. "What?" "He had a folder with your name on it." The rain seemed to quiet. "What was in it?" "Your old lease, your credit score, pictures of Grandma's house, notes about the inheritance." She swallowed loudly. "And there was another folder for me." My hand tightened around the phone. "What did his note say?" For a moment, she couldn't answer. Then she whispered, "He called us prospects." I got out of bed slowly. The floor was cold under my feet. Bianca kept talking, words rushing now, breaking apart as they came. "He was never choosing between us because he loved me more. He was choosing who he could use faster. You wouldn't sell Grandma's house. You wouldn't put his name on anything. You kept saying you wanted to wait until after the wedding." I remembered those arguments. Dorian sitting across from me at my kitchen table, smiling like patience was hurting him. "Baby, property is just paper. Marriage means trust." I had loved him, but not enough to sign away the only thing my grandmother left me. Apparently, that had saved me. Bianca sniffed. "I signed things, Amara." My stomach turned. "What things?" I didn't read all of them. "Bianca." "I know," she snapped, then immediately broke again. "I know. I was stupid. He said it was for us, for our future, for the consulting company. He said married couples build together." I leaned against the wall. Dorian had always loved words like build. Build wealth, build legacy, build trust. He used them the way fishermen used bait. "What company?" "Vail Strategic Partners." I had never heard of it. Of course I hadn't. Bianca gave a wet, humorless laugh. "It's not real. Not really. It has a website and a logo and invoices, but the address is a rented mailbox. The clients are shells. The loans are real, though." "How much?" Silence. "Bianca, how much?" Her voice became barely audible. 480,000. I stopped breathing. "In your name?" "And Dad's, partly." "My father." Quiet, stubborn Otis Wells, who still kept cash in envelopes and wrote every bill payment in a notebook. "What did you do?" "He told Dad it was a short-term bridge investment, said he could double it in 18 months. Dad didn't want to, but Mom pushed him. She said Dorian understood money better than any of us." I almost laughed. It would have sounded cruel, so I didn't. "Where is he now?" "I don't know." Bianca's voice shook. "His phone is off. His closet is empty. His passport is gone. The watch I bought him is gone. The painting from the dining room is gone. Even the silver serving set from Mom." "That silver was from Grandma." "I know." "No, she didn't. Not then. Maybe not ever." For a while, neither of us spoke. 2 years earlier, I would have dreamed of this moment. Bianca crying. Dorian exposed. My family forced to see what I had tried to tell them. But revenge in real life doesn't feel clean when it finally arrives. It feels like standing in the ruins of a house you once warned everyone was on fire. Bianca whispered, "Can you come over?" I looked toward the window. The street below was slick and empty. "No." The word came out before I could soften it. She inhaled sharply. Please. No, Bianca. I don't have anyone else. That did make me laugh, but quietly. You had everyone. She cried again. I sat on the edge of the bed. I'll give you the number of a fraud attorney. I'll also send you the contact for a financial crimes investigator who helped one of my vendors last year. But I'm not coming to your house at 2 a.m. to hold your hand because the man you stole from me stole from you too. Her breathing turned uneven. I deserve that. You deserve worse. I know. That stopped me. Because Bianca had never known. Not once. Not when she wore my ring after Dorian had the center stone reset. Not when she let our mother say I was bitter. Not when she posted wedding photos with captions about destiny. I rubbed my forehead. What do you want from me? The truth, she said. Did you know? Know what? That he was like this. I thought about the old version of me. The one who ignored how Dorian got irritated when I asked basic questions. The one who mistook charm for warmth. The one who thought jealousy for my sister was just sisterhood with thorns. No, I said. I knew he was selfish. I knew he was dishonest. I didn't know he was a predator. Bianca let out a broken sound. He kept a list, Amara. What list? Women. My skin prickled. She sniffed hard. Names, cities, assets, family contacts. Some were crossed out, some had notes. One said, too cautious. One said, no property. Yours said, emotionally attached, financially resistant. Mine said... She stopped. What did yours say? Another long silence. Then, very softly, she said, competitive, easy to redirect. I closed my eyes again. There it was. The whole story of us, reduced to 4 words in a stranger's file. He had not just stolen my fiancé. He had studied my sister's worst flaw and used it like a door. Bianca had wanted to beat me so badly she never noticed the finish line was a trap. Send me pictures of everything, I said. You'll help? I'll look. Amara. Do not mistake that for forgiveness. She went quiet. I won't. But she would. People like Bianca thought regret was a key. They believed if they cried hard enough, doors had to open. I hung up after sending her 2 contacts. Then I sat awake until dawn. At 4, I went downstairs and started the ovens. By 6, the bakery smelled like cinnamon, yeast, and orange zest. By 7, the first customers came in. By noon, Bianca had sent 43 photos. I looked at them during my lunch break, sitting alone at the prep table with flowers still on my wrists. She had not exaggerated. There were spreadsheets, copies of driver's licenses, screenshots of property records, loan documents, wire transfers, a scanned copy of my grandmother's house deed. And there, in Dorian's neat digital notes, was a timeline of my relationship with him. First date, March 11th. Engagement target, 14 to 16 months. Family influence, mother values, appearance, father cautious, younger sister reactive. Younger sister reactive. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I saw another note under Bianca's name. Sibling rivalry can accelerate transfer. My hand went cold. Dorian hadn't fallen for Bianca. He had aimed her at me, like a weapon. And she had been so thrilled to be chosen that she never questioned who loaded the gun. That evening my mother called. I watched her name flash on my phone and let it ring until it stopped. Then she called again. I answered while wiping down the display case. Amara, she said, breathless, your sister is in trouble. So I heard. We need to come together as a family. I almost admired the speed. 2 years ago, my heartbreak had been an inconvenience. Now that there was debt, suddenly we were a family again. What exactly do you need from me? My mother hesitated. Don't sound like that. Like what? Cold. I looked around the bakery I had built because nobody wanted my grief in their living room. I'm busy, Mom. Your sister may lose her home. Her home was partly bought with Dad's retirement money, wasn't it? That's not fair. No, it isn't. She sighed, sharp and theatrical. Amara, this is not the time to punish Bianca. I'm not punishing her. Dorian did that. You know what I mean. I really do. The silence between us swelled. Then she said the thing I knew she would eventually say. You saw through him before any of us. You must have something. Messages, old emails, anything that could help prove he planned this. I did have old emails. I had ignored them for 2 years. Not deleted. Ignored. Dorian had sent me dozens of messages after leaving me. Apologies. Explanations. Soft little hooks. I miss how safe you made me feel. I hope one day you understand I never meant to hurt you. You were always the steady one. At the time, I thought they were guilt. Now I wondered if they were maintenance. A way to keep me emotionally available in case Bianca didn't work out. I might have some emails, I said. My mother exhaled in relief. Oh, thank God. Send them to Bianca right away. No. What? I'll send them to the investigator. If they matter, he can use them. Why are you making this difficult? That old sentence. The family anthem. Whenever Bianca broke something, I was difficult for refusing to sweep barefoot through the glass. I'm making it legal, I said. Your sister is terrified. She should be. Amara. No, Mom. You don't get to call me now and ask me to rescue everyone from the man you welcomed after he humiliated me. Her voice hardened. We were trying to keep peace. You kept appearances. There's a difference. She had no answer for that. So I gave her one more. I'll cooperate with the investigation. I won't lie. I won't hide evidence. But I will not pretend this family didn't feed me to that wedding so Bianca could feel comfortable wearing white. Then I hung up. My hand shook afterward. Not from fear. From finally saying it. 3 days later, the investigator called me. His name was Oren Velez, and his voice had the tired patience of someone who had spent years listening to people explain why they trusted men they should have searched on public records. Ms. Wells, he said, your sister gave permission for me to contact you. I figured. I reviewed the documents she sent. This is bigger than a domestic financial dispute. How much bigger? We have at least 5 aliases, 3 states, and a pattern of romantic targeting tied to fraudulent borrowing. I sat down. The bakery was closed. Outside, the streetlights reflected off wet pavement. Inside, the last tray of sourdough cooled on the rack. Aliases? Dorian Cade is one legal name, not the only one he has used. I pressed my fingers to my temple. Was he married before? At least once legally, possibly twice through ceremonies that were never registered. I thought of Bianca's wedding, the chapel, the flowers, her laugh. A ceremony could be fake and still ruin a life. What do you need from me? I asked. Emails, texts, anything showing he pressured you to alter property ownership, combine finances, or transfer assets. I have some. Send everything, even if it seems harmless. Nothing about Dorian seemed harmless now. After we ended the call, I opened a box I hadn't touched since moving. It sat at the back of my closet under winter coats and a broken lamp. Inside were wedding things. Not sentimental things, evidence of a life interrupted. A silk ribbon sample. A seating chart. A receipt for the chapel deposit. A small velvet ring box. And beneath all of it, my old phone. I charged it in the kitchen and waited. When it finally blinked awake, messages poured back like ghosts. Dorian's name sat there, pinned near the top. I opened the thread. At first, it hurt. Then it sharpened. There were the sweet messages. Can't wait to call you my wife. You're my safest place. We'll build something nobody can touch. Then the pressure began. Your grandmother would want that house to help our future. You're thinking like a single woman, not a partner. I need to know you trust me before I stand at that altar. A week before he left me, I had written, I love you, but I'm not signing anything until after the wedding, and an independent lawyer reviews it. His reply came 6 minutes later. Of course, I respect that. The next day, he took Bianca to lunch. I knew because she posted a picture of 2 cocktails and a caption that said, Unexpected advice from unexpected people. I had hated that photo for 2 years. Now it made sense. I sent everything to Oren. Then I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and felt something inside me move. Not forgiveness. Not peace. Something colder, but useful. Confirmation. A week passed. Then another. Bianca texted constantly. I didn't answer most of them. I answered questions about dates, documents, names, nothing else. Then, one afternoon, she came to the bakery. I saw her through the front window before she saw me. For a second, I didn't recognize her. Bianca had always dressed like life was a room she expected to impress. Tailored coats, bright lipstick, gold hoops, heels that clicked like punctuation. Now she stood outside in flat shoes and a gray sweater, hair tied back, face bare and pale. She looked ordinary. That was new. When she stepped inside, the bell over the door rang. I kept arranging almond croissants behind the glass. We're closed in 10 minutes, I said. I know. She looked around. I hated that she was seeing the bakery for the first time after all this. Hated that part of me still wanted her to be impressed. It smells good in here, she said. Bread usually does. She winced. Good. She approached the counter slowly, as if sudden movements might make me disappear. I wanted to thank you. Don't. Amara, I mean it. Don't thank me like I did this for you. Her eyes filled. I know you didn't. I did it because he needs to be stopped. She nodded quickly. I know. No, she didn't. But she was learning. I slid the tray into the case and closed the back. Bianca stared at her reflection in the glass. I found your recipe book, she said. My hands paused. The one you gave us. Congratulations. It was in a box he packed but forgot in the garage. He wrote in it. I looked up. What? She reached into her bag and pulled out the book. The cover was stained, one corner bent. I had made it by hand, pressing dried herbs between sheets of wax paper, writing each recipe in black ink. Bianca placed it on the counter like an offering. I did not touch it. He made notes in the margins, she said. My stomach tightened. I opened it. On the page for my pear tart, beside my careful handwriting, Dorian had written, Useful sentimental object. Help lower resistance after wedding conflict. I stared. Bianca covered her mouth. I'm sorry, she whispered. I turned the page. Beside my grandmother's honey cake. Ask mother about inheritance stories. Another page. Food memories create compliance. I closed the book. For a moment the bakery was silent, except for the low buzz of the lights. Then I laughed once. Bianca flinched. Even my recipes, I said. She started crying. I didn't. I had cried over that book when I gave it to her. I had cried because I thought I was surrendering the last soft part of myself. But Dorian had looked at softness and seen a tool. Bianca whispered, I didn't know. I looked at her then. Really looked. You didn't want to know. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. That's true. The admission landed between us. Small, late, but real. I hated you, she said. My throat tightened. I know. No, she said. You don't. I hated how people trusted you. How Dad asked your opinion. How Grandma left you the house because you were the one who visited every weekend. I told myself you were everyone's favorite. I said nothing. When Dorian started talking to me, it felt like proof, like finally someone picked me over you. Her face twisted. But he didn't pick me. He picked the easiest wound. I leaned against the counter. For years, I had wanted Bianca to understand exactly what she had done. Now that she did, it didn't repair anything. It just made the damage visible. I can't give you what you came for, I said. She wiped her face. I know. Do you? I'm not asking you to forgive me. Good. I'm asking if I can say I'm sorry and have you believe that I mean it. That was harder. Because she did mean it. Finally. Completely. And it still wasn't enough. I believe you, I said. Her shoulders dropped with relief. Then I added, but I don't trust you. She nodded, crying quietly. That's fair. I don't know if we'll ever be sisters again. Her mouth trembled. I know. But I'll keep helping the investigation. Thank you. I gave her the recipe book. She pushed it back. It's yours. It stopped being mine when you let him turn it into a trophy. She looked down like I had struck her. Maybe I had. I don't want it, I said. Give it to Oren. It's evidence. The word changed her face. Evidence. Not memory. Not family. Evidence. That was what Dorian had made of us. 6 weeks later, he was arrested in a hotel outside Briarport, under a name I had never heard before. He wasn't alone. According to Oren, he was with a woman who believed they were flying to Lisbon to start a property investment company. She had already wired him $70,000. When Bianca called to tell me, she didn't cry. Her voice was flat. He was doing it again. Yes, I said. I thought he was running from me. He was running toward the next person. That silence hurt more than the sobbing had. Because there is a particular kind of grief in realizing you were not even special to the person who destroyed you. Not loved, not hated, not chosen, just useful. The trial took months. By then, the story had spread through Bellwether in pieces. Not the way my family had once spread mine. This version had documents, aliases, court dates, investigators, reporters. My mother stopped posting old wedding photos of Bianca and Dorian. My father came to the bakery one morning before opening. He stood outside with his cap in both hands until I unlocked the door. Dad, I said, surprised. He looked older than he had 2 years ago. Or maybe I had stopped protecting him in my mind. I should have come sooner, he said. I stepped aside. He entered slowly, looking around like the bakery was a country he had no passport for. You built this yourself? Yes. He nodded. Looks strong. That almost broke me. Not because it was enough. Because it was the kind of thing I had needed to hear when I first opened, and he had been too busy attending Sunday dinners with Bianca and Dorian. He sat at a corner table. I brought him coffee. For a while, he just held the cup. Then he said, I failed you. I looked at him. He kept his eyes down. When your sister did what she did, I told myself staying neutral was wisdom. It wasn't. It was cowardice. My throat tightened. I wanted you to call. I know. I wanted you to tell me I didn't deserve it. His eyes shone. You didn't. Too late. Still needed. Both things can be true. He wiped his face with one rough hand. I'm sorry, Amara. I nodded once. I believe you. He looked up, hopeful and afraid. But believing you doesn't erase it. I know. Good. Everyone was learning new words. Consequences. Evidence. Cowardice. Not forgiveness yet. Maybe not ever. On the day Dorian pleaded guilty, Bianca asked me to come to court. I almost said no. Then Oren called and said, your statement may affect sentencing. So I went. Not for Bianca. Not for my parents. For every woman in those folders. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Bianca sat on one side with my parents. I sat 2 rows behind them. Dorian entered in a plain shirt. No expensive watch. No perfect suit. No polished glow. Without the costume, he looked smaller. Not harmless, just smaller. A man built entirely out of borrowed confidence. When he saw me, his expression shifted. For 1 second, the old Dorian appeared. Soft eyes. Regretful mouth. The look that used to make me doubt myself. I stared back until he looked away. My statement was short. I did not cry. I told the court that Dorian did not simply steal money. He studied love, grief, family pressure, insecurity, and trust, then converted them into access. I said he turned people against each other because divided people were easier to rob. I said he did not ruin my life, but he did change it, and I wanted the court to understand that emotional fraud leaves receipts no bank can print. When I finished, the room was quiet. Bianca was crying silently. Dorian stared at the table. The judge sentenced him to prison, restitution, and restrictions that would follow him long after release. It did not feel like victory, but it felt like a door locking. Outside the courthouse, Bianca approached me. She wore a black coat and no jewelry. For a second, we stood facing each other under a white winter sky. "He looked at you," she said. "I know. He was scared of you." "No," I said. "He was scared I stopped being useful." Bianca swallowed. "I'm selling the house." I nodded. "I figured. I have to. There's too much debt." "I'm sorry." And I was. Not enough to rescue her, but enough to mean it. She looked at me carefully. "Are you?" "Yes." Her eyes filled again. "I don't know who I am without competing with you." That was the saddest thing she had ever said to me. I pulled my coat tighter. "Then maybe you finally get to find out." She gave a small, broken nod. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. "What's that?" "A letter, not asking for anything, just things I should have said before." I didn't take it right away. She held it there, hand trembling. "You can throw it away." "I might." "I know." I took the envelope. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Just paper. Sometimes that is all a beginning gets to be. A year after that first phone call, my bakery expanded into the empty shop next door. My father helped sand the old floors. He never asked for easy closeness. He just showed up on Saturdays with tools, coffee, and quiet apologies folded into action. My mother came twice. The first time, she cried too much and made it about herself. The second time, she listened more. That was progress. Bianca moved to a smaller apartment near the train station. She got a job managing inventory for a furniture warehouse. Not glamorous. Honest. She sent me one text every few months. "I hope you're well." No pressure to answer. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I wrote back, "You too." That was all we could manage. Then, one evening, almost exactly 3 years after the chapel wedding, I found the old envelope in my desk drawer. Bianca's letter. I had never opened it. The bakery was closed, the ovens were cooling, rain moved softly against the windows. I sat at the counter, slit the envelope with a butter knife, and unfolded 3 pages of careful handwriting. "Amara, I have said sorry, but I know sorry is small compared to what I helped destroy. I used to think you had more love than me, more patience, more attention, more of everything. Instead of asking why I felt empty, I tried to take what you had. When Dorian wanted me, I thought it meant I had finally beaten you. That is the ugliest truth about me. I did not just fall in love. I betrayed you because part of me wanted to see you lose. He used that, but he did not create it. That part was mine. I am trying to become someone who can admit that without hiding. You do not owe me a sisterhood. You do not owe me holidays. You do not owe me comfort. But I hope one day, if you think of me, it is not only on the chapel steps. I am sorry I laughed. That line stopped me. I am sorry, I laughed. For 2 years, that laugh had lived in my body like a splinter. Small, buried, impossible to explain without sounding dramatic. And there it was. Named. I folded the letter and sat very still. Then I took out my phone. Bianca answered on the second ring. Amara? Her voice was cautious. Are you busy? No. Is everything okay? I looked around the bakery, at the copper lights, the flour-dusted counter, the racks cooling tomorrow's bread. Yes, I said. Everything's okay. She waited. I read your letter. Quote, her breath caught. Oh, I'm not ready to have dinner. Okay. I'm not ready for holidays. I understand. But there's a farmer's market next Saturday. I have a stall. If you want to stop by near closing, you can. For a moment, there was no sound. Then Bianca whispered, I'd like that. 1 hour, I said. 1 hour. And Bianca? Yes? Don't bring flowers. She let out a tiny laugh, then stopped herself. Sorry. But this time the laugh did not cut me. This time it sounded nervous, human. Almost like something that could someday become harmless. We hung up. I stood alone in the bakery, phone in my hand, and thought about the woman I had been on those chapel steps. Humiliated. Furious. Certain my life had been stolen. But Dorian had not stolen my life. He had stolen an illusion. Bianca had not stolen my future. She had forced me out of the wrong one. That did not make what they did right. Pain does not become a blessing just because you survive it. But survival gives you choices. And for the first time in years, I was not choosing out of fear, grief, or pride. I was choosing from solid ground. The next Saturday, Bianca came to the market at 3:50. No flowers. No dramatic speech. She bought a loaf of rosemary bread and paid full price, even when I told her not to be ridiculous. We sat behind the stall on 2 overturned crates, watching vendors pack up under a gold evening sky. For a while, we said nothing. Then she tore the bread in half and handed me the bigger piece. It was such a small thing. Almost nothing. But once, my sister had taken the man I loved just to prove she could. Now she was giving me the bigger half of a loaf. Not redemption. Not yet. But maybe repair starts embarrassingly small. Maybe it starts with bread. Maybe it starts when the person who laughed at your pain finally learns to sit beside it quietly. Bianca looked at me, eyes damp but steady. Thank you for letting me come. I watched the sun slip behind the rooftops. I didn't do it for who you were, I said. She nodded. I know. I did it for who you might become. She looked down at the bread in her hands. I'm trying. For once I believed her. And for once, believing her did not feel like betraying myself.